Alright, here we go. Let's get rid of this smart guide here. Let's start placing our icons in here. And let's see just how much space we have as kind of a gap from the edge here. So I'm going to draw out a rectangle until I get to about here. And we've got about 36 pixels of space. So let's get rid of that guy. Zoom out. Let's start with our first icon here. I'm going to resize that a bit. I'm going to change this. I'm going to bring the opacity up just temporarily. Let's zoom in just a tiny bit. I'm going to drop a smart guide right on the top here. Let's see how much space we have here. Now that is from this edge, but what I really want is from that. Let's change that color to red, just so we have something to go on. I'm going to bring this over to about there. That should be good. Let's change the color of that to white. That's good there. And I'm going to place one more smart guide just to see size-wise how big that is. Shrink it down just a bit. Alright, that should be good. Alright, next up we have our apple here. Let's bring that up here. I'm going to drag that up above my rectangle. Let's resize. Something like that. Smart guides in place. Let's change our fill to white. Let's bring that up here. And now with this one, I can probably hit Alt. And that's from the left edge here, so that's a little more accurate. Bring that down just a tiny bit. And lastly, let's get the exercise bike. It's going the other way, so let's actually flip it around. I'm going to flip it horizontally. Let's drag it up here. And once again, drag that above our rectangle. Shrink it down a bit. Let's get some smart guides in place so we know where to put it. Maybe about there. Shrink this guy down a bit. Shrink, shrink, shrink. And let's change the fill to white for this guy as well. Alright, so we're good there, and let's get rid of all of our smart guides. So now I'm thinking, how do we want to handle the coloring for this? And I think we're going to treat this as having its own gradient. It's also got a bit of a drop shadow here, so we'll do that too. But before that, I'm going to select all of these and group them. So everything's selected. I'm going to hit Command G. Let's say bottom left rectangle. I'm going to hold down Shift and just drag it over into our artboard here. Alright, now let's come over to the Layers panel. I'm going to expand that, select my rectangle, and let's set the coloring for this. I'm going to do this as a gradient. Top point selected, you know the drill. Let's get our eyedropper. Come up here to the top, so I'm near the edge. I got that. Let's select our bottom reference point, get the eyedropper, get near the bottom, select that. Okay, so now that's good. Now the thing that's really going to sell it is the drop shadow. Let's go ahead and move over here. So let's apply the drop shadow, but what we want to do is kind of have it be more of a solid and not blurred, and probably maybe 1 pixel of shadow. So I'm changing my X and Y values to 1 just to test it out. And then I'm going to bring the blur back to about a 1. And I think I'm going to change the color to more of a blue. So let's maybe select this blue here. Drop the alpha just a little bit, just to lighten it up. Click off, and that looks pretty good. Now the other thing is, you've got kind of a whitish shadow here. We've also got a shadow here on the left-hand side, and the right actually. So the way to go about doing that, let's do the other drop shadows first. So let's go back to our shadows here. So select our rectangle. Let's go ahead and right-click, and let's say copy shadow. And paste. Probably could have just said duplicate. And for this, I'm going to say a -1. This will push it to the left. There we go. So that gives us the left edge. We already have the right and the bottom. We don't necessarily need this Y here. So let's just put that as a 0. And then for the top portion, we want, let's do an inner shadow. So with that rectangle selected, I'm going to select and do an inner shadow. I only want this top little portion here. So this is going to be pushing down, and I want to say that's just going to be a regular Y value. I don't want any X values. Let's take away our blur, maybe a little bit of blur. Okay, so next I want to try to tackle the top portion here. And it looks like there's a little bit of a white line here. And I think the way that I'm going to accomplish that, let's select our rectangle again, and let's try to apply an inner shadow. I've got that selected. I only need the top portion here, so I'm not going to worry about the X value. I just want the Y. And let's go ahead and keep the Y at a 1. Let's drop the blur to probably a 0. Something like that, but I want the color to be more of a whitish, or like a whitish blue. Let's get our eyedropper. Select a blue, let's something like that. And now I'm going to take the alpha and just drop that down to lighten it up. Something like that, and maybe increase to 2. I think maybe 1 is fine. There we go. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that and the way it's looking. Let's zoom out a bit. Let's move over. Now it's looking like my gradient here for this main background isn't as dark as this one over here. So one thing I can do is select my gradient again. I can drop another point here, another reference point. Let's get our color picker. Let's select that darkish blue. I think that's going to help things a bit. And if needed, let's do a couple more. And when you drop these points, you want to select kind of the same area over here. Let's get one more, maybe right there above the box. And that's good. And just for the heck of it, let's do one here in the middle, because it seems to be a bit of a pain. I think right there. I'm not sure that was right. Let's get our color picker and let's go all the way over here to the edge. There we go. Alright, so that's looking a lot better, and it's given our box a much better effect there. Alright, so I'm going to grab this guy, I'm going to duplicate it, Command D, let's drag this over, and we'll keep it at about that much space. So one more thing I want to do, let's chop off the edge here. I'm going to come over here to my rectangle. Let's put it in edit mode. I'm going to select these guys. Now I could put a rectangle here and just use a Boolean operation to chop it off, but I think just for our purposes, I'm going to change these to square. I'm going to bring it over just to the edge. Same with this guy, no rounded corner. Let's take that off. And I'll hold down Shift, drag it over to the edge. And I think I still need to take the radius off this guy. Let's do that. There we go. Okay, so let's get rid of these little icons. We don't need those. Now let's get our little profile ovals here. I'm going to hit O for oval on my keyboard. Get to the center of that, hold down Alt-Shift. Draw out a circle about the same size. And that's good. Let's drop a smart guide so we know where these go. So one right there, and for the last guy right there. And I think we had about 36 pixels of space on the last one. Look at that. Pretty good. Let's get that guy selected, drop it down just a little bit, and I'll hit Command D, hold down Shift. Shift is going to allow me to drag this down and it won't slide left and right. Drag that right there, and let's do it one more time. Command D, hold down Shift, drag that down. And now let's populate these with some faces. So come up here, Data, Faces, and we're going to have to come over here and say Fit. There's the first one. You never know what you're going to get. Faces and Fit. And then Data. faces. And there we go. Let's get rid of this. And let's also plug in our little team icon. I'm going to drop a smart guide in here, probably on the bottom. Let's drag this up and in here. In our layers panel, I'm going to drag this icon up above everything. Resize it quite a bit. Let's change the fill to white and keep on resizing. So right about there. Alright, and let's take a step back, see what we have here. Zoom in just a little bit. And there we go. So I really like the way that turned out. Hope you guys got some good stuff from this. We didn't create just about everything. I tried to skip over the text, but if you want to, you can go back. Avenir Next would probably be a great font to use. You got a lot of different weights. You can get the finished look for this 750 and then thicken it up for this guy's here. Also thicken it up for these here. So if you want to do that, the sketch file will be available to you, or I highly recommend downloading the resources and recreating this yourself. See if you can do it. If nothing else, try this little profile picture. That's probably the most detailed thing on the page. Give that a shot and see how you do. Alright, I hope you guys got some good stuff out of this one. That is it. We are finished with this guy. We're going to move on to the next one. I will see you there.